Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are on the planet. My name is Alexandre Kesch. I am the CEO of On-Chain Custodian, a digital asset custody and open finance service provider in Singapore. Today, I'm in conversation with Adam Vaziri, CEO at Blockpass. Blockpass is a customer of On-Chain Custodian and uses us for its treasury management. Blockpass is a unique, reusable digital identity solution for any organizations that participate in a regulated and increasingly remote business environment where trust needs to be verified digitally.
So Adam, thanks for being on the show. As a way of introduction, can you explain who you are and why you are in the digital asset industry?
Sure. I'm Adam Vaziri, as you know. I'm CEO of Blockpass, and I've been in the blockchain industry roughly since 2012. In 2013, I set up the first legal practice in London that's focused on the Bitcoin industry initially. And I was working with a number of startups that were trying to leverage Bitcoin for different reasons, such as payments, changing the way that the financial system can work, but using a blockchain behind it. And this was very much at the early stages. My primary expertise is regulatory technology. I qualified as a technology lawyer, but I shifted into compliance and regulations. And so when I discovered Bitcoin, it was kind of a symbiosis of technology and eventually what I foresaw to be regulations. When you have like programmable money, then it's both effectively. Yeah, so for me, it was very much important to try and bring these businesses that were at the cutting edge into what would become the mainstream of financial services, and to assist and facilitate their kind of bridging into what the mainstream is. And that means, you know, a degree of transparency around who is behind the business, compliance with anti-money laundering laws, which is a prerequisite for being a player in the financial services industry, and some of these kind of structural things. A lot of those businesses experienced a challenge with adaptation to the compliance requirements of being regulated. And I saw that, you know, this is a challenge not only for those types of businesses, but also for any kind of challenger in the fintech market. Always compliance is the barrier, that barrier prevents them from scaling and bringing their product to a wider audience. So if you want, the genesis of Blockpass was to try and remedy that situation by giving people a digital identity which they can reshare across many different services. And by doing it in that way, it means that the businesses that need to onboard their users don't have to necessarily interface with the knowing or understanding the requirements. Just plug and play and know that it's been done to a very high standard and level. And by doing it in this manner in which an individual creates a single reusable identity, it means also that you leverage the reputation that that individual generates within that identity network. And so they're able to prove to a service not only that they are verified, but that they have a reputation in that network, and that therefore they're even more reliable than someone that was just onboarding off the bat. And so, you know, developing the system, you know, it kind of came into, you know, the origination of this was back in 2017, at which point I decided that my skills were probably best placed at that intersection between technology and law. And so I decided to take the leap in initiating the Blockpass product Took us roughly a year to build it, brought it to market. Our first application was a mobile application, which was a mobile reusable identity. And since then, we've been bringing it to market, and hopefully, we have a comprehensive solution to this problem of KYC and the duplication involved in the process and the extreme amount of costs associated with this industry, which is completely unnecessary. If it's architected properly, then it will be a very lean environment for startups to get into the ecosystem and be compliant and not worry too much about all of that, what's happening under the hood, so to speak. So this is our objective at Blockpass.
Great introduction of yourself and Blockpass. My second question, what is your number one concern as a startup, and how are you addressing it?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I always want to understand the problem. I want to understand what people are experiencing. Like, I want to understand what our clients are experiencing. What are their pain points? What are the things that they don't like? And for me, that data is so fundamental to how we approach product development at Blockpass. That every comment made by a user, we use that to really identify what is the root cause and try and make our product better. And, I think for me, my number one concern is making sure that both our users and our merchants, that they understand Blockpass, the value proposition behind Blockpass, and that they can understand and appreciate that value, and that any difficulties that they may experience or any misalignment of expectations that often happens with any product that you use, that we're able to identify the root causes of that and put a plan in place to improve it. And constantly, I think when you're conceptualizing a product before it's entered the market, it's very much an abstract process. You're just anticipating what the future holds. But once it's entered into the market, that's when it becomes far more interesting. And so it's getting that data, processing that data, identifying what are the main pain points, root causes, and developing a product that everyone loves. That's my main concern.
Okay. What topic should our industry pay more attention to, and why?
I think, the industry is totally upskilled compared to where it was. I mean, in terms of the blockchain industry in general, it's upskilled itself in terms of where it was back in 2013 when I started. When I started, people were very much, trying to operate on the antithesis of compliance, like in an alternative universe, etc. But now they're kind of embracing the concept that in order for this to enter the mainstream, then it needs to be some guardrails. And you're seeing, obviously businesses doing that. But then, of course, there are other businesses that are kind of DeFi projects that they don't want to have the friction of compliance, etc. And I totally understand all of those motives. But I don't necessarily believe that those businesses or those systems need to worry too much about compliance. In fact, I think, it's not like they're very much in the cutting edge of experimentation, etc. So what's beautiful about crypto is this ability to push the boat out, so to speak, of what's possible, and then gradually see if something works, then how can you bring it gradually into the mainstream. In the same way that Bitcoin inspired, banks to realize that they could use a blockchain for instant settlement, right? It's the cutting edge of beyond regulation, so to speak, that inspires what the future looks like in financial services. So I don't think, we should be like a nanny state trying to regulate everything. That's ridiculous and hampers innovation. But when ideas that they reach certain maturity and that you can see that they could reach a certain scale, then it's the question of, okay, well, how do we bridge that into the mainstream where we have all of these regulations in place, etc. So I really think that those that are already in that space, they're already generating an awareness. Like, an interesting fact is this year, obviously the FATF guidelines are coming into place, and a lot of businesses, is going to be a domino effect across the world. But lots of businesses are having to adapt. Okay, now I need to do AML, KYC and all this stuff. and I need a system to help me do this, because I've never considered it in the past, or I've just done it on an ad hoc basis. And we're finding that, this, what I anticipated is that, countries and businesses are seeing, okay, well, and there's this cool thing called Blockpass. I just go create an account, don't need to integrate an API. I can if I want, I can install it on my premises if I want, have all the optionality. But if I just want out of the box to onboard people, I can. And we're seeing that, we're getting a lot of traction from the continent of America and North America area. And we're seeing that, people go create an account, they realize that they're now regulated and start using it. So what should they be concerned about? Well, I think they should be thinking, okay, well, I'm in this now kind of regulated space, and they should not worry about what the implication of that is. But they should realize that actually there are tools out there that now can make their life a lot easier, and that they don't have to think, oh gosh, now I need to shut down my business because my regulatory costs have shot through the roof. That's not the case. There are tools, there are people such as myself that have invested a portion of their career and life to remedying those problems so that they can stay in business. So I don't think they should be concerned. I think they should just know that actually there's things out there to help them.
On the same topic of our maturing industry, what is third-party custody for you, and why are you working with on-chain custodian?
Yeah, certainly. For me, thinking about custody is understanding that, not everyone is equipped to look after things safely. Not every individual, not every business have PhD cryptographers and CTOs that have experience in cybersecurity, that they're able to look after keys at scale securely. And so, you need to have certain agents in the economy that are able to do that and specialize in that area and give people the peace of mind surrounding this new digital asset and safe storage of it. Some people will choose, of course, to look after their own keys, but they need to do that with the knowledge and awareness and responsibility that comes with that. And not every user or business is prepared to go that far. Also, I think there's a nuance within custody. Custody is not necessarily always about giving up control and trusting someone else. The custody is about a kind of mutually evolving relationship of thinking, well, I'm responsible for certain things, but I need some redundancy in case something goes wrong. If in my business, there's, someone unfortunately is not available or, not present for whatever the reason is, especially in these uncertain times that we see today, you need to have a third-party agent that acts for the benefit of the company, not individuals, that is able to step in case one of those situations or contingency plans comes into effect. So it's more an ongoing mutual relationship custody. I don't believe it's oh, give me all your keys, I'll look after them. It's much more nuanced than that, especially as we move forwards in this digital asset industry. I think a lot of people are thinking about questions such as inheritance, things like what happens when you have change control, the board shifts and things like that. How do you ensure continuance? These are much more refined questions, and you can't necessarily address all of those questions yourself individually. So to me, it's about finding a partner that you can work with to be able to address those questions as your business evolves. Why on-chain? Well, for me, every partnership, for me, it's always a two-way street. Like I want to use every product and really understand the product, understand the team, and the best way for me to get to know a team is to use their products. And from the very start, Alex, said, let's use your system. We want to try it out. I want to use it because that's the best way of me understanding on-chain and what you guys are doing and how we could potentially work together. And it's been a great experience just seeing the level of professionalism of your team, and the kind of, the focus on security and access controls, and the amount of thought. You can see the amount of thought that's gone into the product with respect to how certain permissions are controlled in the system, and it's very much well thought through in terms of corporate governance, and the various people that operate within a business and their needs and access and admin. All of these things have been thought through really thoroughly, and you need to be able to see that in a product. But you also need to have the sentiment that you have a professional team there to support you, which I've seen and I've experienced. So for me, it's all about developing that partnership.
Adam, I know you are participating to industry groups or standardization initiatives. Why are you doing so? Why do you think that harmonization of practices is so important for our industry?
Yeah, I think the work towards standardization in this new field is really important to make it easier to integrate systems. And when you have too many proprietary technologies, etc., the whole industry becomes dislocated. And Bitcoin, the genesis of it is an open financial system, and compatibility comes from the protocol itself. You just need to download the software and you connect to the network and you are compatible. And so as people are building layers on top of effectively a blockchain system, those systems need to embed the core principle of Bitcoin, which is universal compatibility. And the problem is when you have a system that's not ruled by maths, but rather is ruled by people and commercial interests come into play, then you end up with this kind of siloing effect where people are building systems kind of within their own silo. And the result is that even though the underlying layer is cross-compatible, the layers on top are business specific. So in standardization, to me, to retain the open finance principle of blockchain, you need to ensure that anything that's built on top retains those same principles. And so you have to be able to cut across commercial interests and therefore engage governmental bodies or third parties such as foundations, like the Hyperledger, what they're doing, etc., to ensure that you have this standardization. And so to me, I view it as a necessity, just it's not quite the same as an industry that's always been proprietary and you're trying to open it up. This is an industry that's been open from the outset but is evolving, and so you have to break down those barriers, and the only way of doing that is through standardization.
Thanks, Adam. And my last question, who inspires you in the blockchain industry?
Well, that's a really interesting question. I've never really thought about that, to be quite frank. I think, the people that inspire me, I guess, when you look at, for example, Ethereum or one of those projects where really people have really thought about what the future looks like and they managed to make it happen. I mean, make it happen, I'm not sure, it's not quite there yet, but they managed to conceive of the future, and they managed to implement at least some of it. And when you look, I feel a lot of inspiration from, I would call them almost community volunteers. When you think about the Bitcoin protocol, the key decisions, yeah, of course there are commercial interests, but the key decisions around the protocol are being made by effectively volunteers. I always think about this. Imagine if Swift was run by volunteers. how on earth can this thing exist and be run by a community? It is the most incredible phenomenon. So I think what inspires me is that this exists, and when you see these, you see the commitment of people towards this technology, and that their commitment to this technology goes beyond financial interest or whatever. That is inspiring, because, as I said, like, imagine Swift run by volunteers. Like, you cannot conceive of it. But Bitcoin is run by volunteers, and the guys who are coding the stuff that are going to go into the protocol, you know, they're just receiving grants. If no one gives them a grant, they'll still be there in the GitHub doing pull requests. That is an incredibly revitalizing force of this crypto industry, which makes it so different to many other industries. You don't have, you know, I can't see the motivation in other industries. Of course, the open source community is a vibrant community, and people are always engaged in that and stuff. But this is an open source financial system that everyone is engaged in. It's just the most incredible phenomenon to witness. And the people who have been instrumental in supporting that phenomenon, those people are actually the least talked about. There are a lot of people, you know, on GitHub repos that are contributing every day that no one's talking about. They're not the superstars in crypto. You know, they're not, you know, the Marvel characters of crypto, right? They're no way like that. They're kind of unspoken. But yet those are the guys that are actually building the architecture, designing the bridge, and engineering them and implementing them. And if they make a mistake, the whole bridge implodes. So there's this really interesting phenomenon in crypto which you see nowhere else, and that I find that keeps me motivated to keep going. Even when you see, like, you know, people are often motivated by price action. If they see an uptick on Bitcoin, then suddenly everyone gets excited. You know, it's the fever of capitalism, right? But the interesting thing that is somewhat merged with that, greed, which is necessary in Bitcoin because it keeps everyone motivated to keep going, is this kind of community-led focus, which you see nowhere else. So that I find inspiring within this industry.
Adam, thank you so much for this conversation today. I hope to see you very soon in Hong Kong or Singapore.
I look forward to it, Alex. Thanks for your time today.
Cheers.
See you.
And to our viewers, thank you. We hope you enjoyed this session as much as I did, and see you soon.
On-Chain Custodian is supporting pro bono Rapid Ward. COVID-19 is not over, and Rapid Ward, a not-for-profit, provides relief support to distressed hospitals and countries by sourcing and distributing at cost needed products to their beneficiaries. If you want to know more and how you can donate crypto, go on www.rapidward.com/crypto or scan the QR code on the screen. We thank you for your generosity.